Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. I got to meet a couple people from Tool Time in the last few weeks, like in person, see their faces, and it was so exciting to actually meet some people because sometimes this room gets so full, I don't get to see everybody. So today we are on session 98. We're almost to 100. Woo woo! And we're going to do PowerPoint tips. We haven't talked about PowerPoint in a long time, so we thought we'd go over it and show you a couple of new things that we've learned along the way. I'm Larissa. My co-host is Leslie. We're from the library. You can find us on Inside. Just type in library. We're here to answer questions. The library does more than you know it does. So always feel free to reach out and ask for help from us. We're here to support you. I wanted to put in a little plug for Digital Collaboration Central. Our good friend Anna has worked really hard to build up this site, add some content to it. So for people starting out with Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, things like that, there's some great videos and some great content on there. So I want you to bookmark the site. I will share the site at the end as well. I'm sorry I didn't have it up. Or Leslie, if you could find it, that would be helpful. But we'll share it again. It's a good thing to bookmark and share with new employees or for you to go back and reference as well. And you'll see that Anna put the Tool Time Tuesday recordings up here so that you can see the previous recordings as well. So just a shout out for that. We have some upcoming classes. We have a PubMed for beginners and Note for beginners. So if you have some new fellows, these are good classes for them to take. And we have an AI tools for literature searching class that I'm going to be co-teaching with my colleague, Travis Holder. So I'm excited about that. You can find these on the library website, or of course on the institutional calendar, you can find anything that's going on there. So you can always go to Inside and look at events. Okay, let's talk about some PowerPoint tips. I realize some of this is going to be basic for some of you because you do PowerPoint probably frequently. Some of you may be less frequently. So some of it may be a little basic and some of it's going to be more pro. Feel free to add some other tips in the chat as we go. So when you're creating a PowerPoint, just keep in mind, and I should have put a slide in here about this, you can use PowerPoint on your desktop. You can also use it from office.com. So when you go to Inside and you click on the apps in the upper left-hand corner, the little waffle icon, you can access PowerPoint from there as well. And if you save to OneDrive, those things are syncing so you can get to it from anywhere. When you create a PowerPoint, one of the things I always get stuck on is choosing a theme, which is like, it's not like the most important part of your PowerPoint presentation, but I like themes. So when you create, you'll notice there are some defaulted themes that show up when you go to File, New, and there's more themes you can actually search. You can also just go to Brand Central and download the MD Anderson branded theme. So if you don't want to think about the template, or you don't have time to think about the template, or you want it to look really slick and professional, and it's for an MD Anderson presentation, you can just go to Brand Central and download their templates for free. Easy peasy. Two other places you can go if you want to get real creative is you can go to Canva. We've talked about Canva before. You can sign up for a free account. They have great presentations, diagrams, infographics. Part of it's free and part of it's paid for. They make it really clear. There's a little $ crown on the paid for ones. I have used this many times to just kind of jazz up a presentation. And Slides Carnival has free templates as well. I've used them plenty of times. Just another way to get something different if you get bored with your templates. This was a tip from Anna, so I want to share it with all of you. You can actually, if you create an outline of what you want to talk about in Word, you can actually export that Word document list into a PowerPoint presentation, and it'll try to break it out into slides for you. So this only works in OneDrive. It doesn't work on the desktop as far as I could tell, but just create your Word document list outline of what you're going to present. Some people work better from an outline. It's certainly a good idea to have an outline of what you're going to talk about. But once you create your list in Word, you can go to Export and Export to PowerPoint Presentation. I did find if you have a ton of text in your outline, it goes really slow and sometimes it fails. But it's something you could try. If you have a list or an outline, you can export to a PowerPoint presentation and it'll just make slides for you. It's also helpful sometimes if you create headings in your outline of the sections you want, and it sort of PowerPoint learns a little better how to break it down into the slides. So that's just a way you can have a quick start to a presentation. So Word to PowerPoint. Some other tips that I don't use as often, but Leslie always has to remind me of, you can actually reuse slides. So if you're in a slide deck and you're on the Home tab, there's a reuse slides option. What that does is opens up a panel and all your slides in OneDrive, it'll show you those layouts you've already used. So maybe you've done this presentation or a version of the presentation, you can click into reuse slides and it'll show you your other slides that you've used before, and you can just copy that over into the current presentation. So that's a little trick. You can also change the layout of your slides, so add columns, headers, etc. on the Home tab. You can reset a slide to an original format. So that's something I don't always think to do, but sometimes your format gets out of whack because you use the same slide deck over and over, or you've made so many edits. There is a reset option on the Home tab to reset the format so the font will go back to the original, the layout will go back to the original. And then section, you can organize your presentation into sections. This helps if you're working like in a group on a large presentation. If you've ever downloaded a presentation template from Brand Central, you'll notice they organize it into sections. That's kind of for you to be able to pick if you want the green theme or the purple theme or the blue theme, but you can see an example of sections when you download those free templates from Brand Central as well. So these are just things you don't necessarily use all the time, but the reuse slides and the reset are two that I do have to use every once in a while. And I forget about. We've talked about this before, but inserting images. We want to make sure that those images are copyright free or that they're available for reuse. The easiest way to insert an image is just under the Insert tab, you can go to Pictures. You can either add pictures from your computer, things that you've taken or that you've downloaded legally, or you can just use the stock images. The stock images are lovely photos that you can insert to give a little more visual impact. There's also icons. When you click on stock images, there's some icons that you can use that are just really simple and sometimes effective at getting the point across. And there's some illustrations in there as well. For online pictures, what this does is it searches Microsoft Bing for things that are free for you to use. It's a very limited search, but you can try online pictures and search for a keyword. The other thing to think about is in Brand Central, there are some images that you can download and reuse for an MD Anderson presentation. So in Brand Central, don't forget to check those photos. They may be more, maybe apply more to what you're talking about, because the stock images in PowerPoint are pretty generic. Sometimes generic's all you need, but you can also insert 3D models. I rarely do this, but there are some 3D models in PowerPoint as well that you can insert. If for some reason you don't see these options here, you might want to contact Forinfo and just make sure you have the latest version of PowerPoint. I think we should all be on that now, but just in case, wanted to make sure we mentioned that. So a few tips for images, and I could probably go on for an hour just about images, and I'm sure some of you would know even better than me. But if you right click on an image, they give you this little style menu. The style menu allows you to make some basic changes to the image. So just keep in mind that if you right click on it, if you double click on any image that you've inserted in PowerPoint, a whole menu opens up at the top for things that you can actually do with your image. There's also an option to remove a background. So let's say you had a picture of a dog and there were leaves in the background. You could insert a picture into PowerPoint when you go to the picture format tab. So if you just select the picture format tab will pop up. And there's an option to remove background, to remove the leaves behind the dog if you just wanted the dog. I guess a better example would be you have a person, they're standing somewhere and the background's not so pretty. The remove background will try to remove the background and just keep the person. So that is an option. That's something you used to always have to do in Photoshop. And I'm sure it works better in Photoshop than it does in PowerPoint, but it's an option here. And just another note on copyright, just be careful what you use, because we're not allowed to just reuse any images. You want to, of course, cite your sources if you take images, but make sure that you're using them properly, especially if you're going to present externally to like a big conference or something like that. You want to make sure that you're using those images appropriately, because that's going to be broadcast probably online and recorded. So if you have questions, you can always ask us in the library and we can help you navigate and figure out which images you can and can't use. I can't find all the images for you, but if you find images, we can take a look at them and see if they're okay or not. So copy and pasting tips. I know you all know how to copy and paste. You can Control-C and Control-V. You can right-click and copy, right-click and paste. But there's one thing you may not have noticed, or maybe this is just me, but Leslie has to remind me of this as well. You can use the formatting images here to change how it's going to paste into your slide deck. So sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done this, you've pasted and it didn't paste the way you intended for it to paste. It looks a little funky. So try the different icons because it might make a difference. The first one is destination formatting. It uses the font and the theme of the presentation that you're pasting into. The second one is source formatting. So when you paste it, it's going to try to stay the way it was from the original slide deck or wherever you took it from. The third one is paste as a picture. So when you paste as a picture, it literally pastes it as an image into your PowerPoint, and that may be all that you need. You can also paste the text with no formatting, which strips all the theme and formatting out and just puts the text that you're pasting in. There's additional options under the Home tab for paste and paste special. I never use this, but there's advanced pasting options. What I typically forget is I do the Control-C and the Control-V, and then it looks funky. And I'm like, why does it look funky? If I actually were to right click and select the correct paste tool, I can get a better, spend less time trying to reformat and move things around. So if you paste it, it looks wrong, just undo what you did and try a different icon if you don't remember what each one means. Sometimes the second one is just all I needed. Just some pasting pro tips. I don't know if anyone else has trouble pasting. I think sometimes you're just going so fast and you do Control-V, it looks funky, and then you spend time reformatting, but you could just select a different option. Okay, there's also the Design tab in PowerPoint. The Design tab, you can use this to change your themes. So if you were to import, let's say, that word list of content, or maybe you create your PowerPoint as an outline yourself with just text at first, and then you want to add a theme, you can go to Design, and there's a designer option. It's going to review the selected slide and try to give you some other design choices. So it gives you, if you've ever tried that, it gives you a different layout. And sometimes if you can't figure out how to lay it out nicely, it'll give you just some alternatives. This doesn't work on everything. I have found that the designer button just sometimes doesn't show, and sometimes that's because I'm using a slide deck that's not Microsoft. And I'm okay with that because I've downloaded a slide deck I'm good with. But if you like this designer feature, you probably want to use a Microsoft template in order for it to work to its full potential. The other thing we want you to be aware of is the designer feature submits the content of your slides to Microsoft servers to generate design recommendations. So I don't know that is probably, if you're putting in a presentation, the content's okay. But just to let you know, I think we all know everything we put anywhere anymore is getting scraped or picked up by other products, other tools. But Leslie and I want to remind you that that's happening. Am I missing anything so far, Leslie?
We have a question. It's a really good question, which is I often have to consolidate decks from additional submitted decks. Typically, I use the slide sorter view to basically highlight and drag all the new slides into the deck. But in the past, this used to let me keep all the formatting, but now it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is there a workaround for this? And I'm not sure there's a workaround. And I know there's some weirdness with copy and paste. So
There is.
this is either a for info question or it's a we need to poke at this a little bit question. So
Okay, will you write it down so we can look at it and
yes,
try to reply? I have trouble with
yes.
that too, trying to combine the slide decks. Like sometimes it's just one or two slides, it's not a big deal. But we may need to practice a little to find the best practice for it. That is a good question. Okay. So a couple of just pros and cons of the PowerPoint Designer. I kind of already went over these, jumped ahead a little bit, but it does help you design slides quickly, and it offers you variations on the same slide. Sometimes the designs are just a little bit off, so you still have to use your best judgment on, does it make sense? Does it look good? And sometimes it just has no suggestions at all. So just keep that in mind. The designer may not be the perfect tool, but it's kind of a fun tool just to get some variations on what you're looking at. Is it okay to update the formatting in the designer deck? Put a border around the photo that is in the designer deck. Yes. Yes, you can update and change anything that you want. So like they may give you a design and you select that design, and then you could modify it slightly if you want, if it's a little off.
So what about Brand Central decks?
Oh, they lock it down so you can't do much, but you can definitely add photos to Brand Central decks. You can add some other like tables or 3D models or things like that to illustrate what you're talking about. But the general template, that's locked in, so you can't change it. Okay. We wanted to remind you too that you can record in PowerPoint. So this is something people don't often look at, but it actually works pretty well. There is a record tab for you to record the presentation. You can show your camera and your microphone. Oh no, I think I messed up my slide deck here. Okay, you can choose the camera or the microphone. You can use the teleprompter view so you can read the notes while you record. There's an on-screen highlighter and pen that you can move around to demonstrate things. When you're done, you can export the video and share it through OneDrive. So if you have like a slide deck and you're not able to present live, or maybe you presented live, but you want to share it with people afterwards, you can record that slide deck. The other advantage is you can pause, start, or re-record each slide. So it really takes it on a slide-by-slide basis and allows you to say, oh, I messed that one up, and I can re-record that slide and then move ahead. So recording may be a way for you to test your own presentation skills to see how you do, or it may just be a way for you to easily share with others. When you put a recording on OneDrive, it goes into the Microsoft Stream, so it looks like a nice video, and it's shared internally with MD Anderson people. So just another way to record. You could also record with Zoom, of course, or Snagit. This is just an alternative way. If you know you're going to be in a slide deck and you want to share that information, it's a way for you to work on that. It's pretty easy to use too. There's also, we wanted to remind you of presenter mode. I don't know how many times you've been in a meeting where you loaded a slide deck or someone else loaded a slide deck and the wrong screen displays. So don't panic if this happens, I'm so sorry. Leslie, I messed up the slide deck. While I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, I messed up my PowerPoint presentation. Oh man, don't panic when things go wrong. This is a good example. When you are displaying, look for the display settings, and you can switch the presenter mode and the slideshow mode. You can swap the view. So it's at the very top. If you're showing the wrong screen, you can swap the view very quickly. Just take a deep breath, and then you can make the change. You can also use the slideshow tab to choose which monitor you want to present on in general. Just check that presenter view if you want to see your notes. If you don't want to see your notes, then uncheck the presenter view. And just remember, when you're using Zoom, you want to display the monitor that has the full slide deck, not the presenter view. You don't want them to see all your notes and things like that, basically. Okay, real quick. I'm going to fix this.
This is exactly why we tell everyone to not panic. We're all human.
Don't panic. But I do, just full disclosure, I get totally sweaty when I present because I get nervous every time.
In all the years you've been an educator and been like awarded educator stuff, and you still get nervous.
I still get nervous every single time, and I get sweaty every time, whether it's in person or at home. That's weird to me that I'm at home and I should be comfortable, and I still get nervous, and I still get sweaty, and I still have adrenaline, you know. Okay, sorry, TMI. You can also use the PowerPoint Presenter Coach. So the Presenter Coach, we actually had one of our editors talk about this. You can practice your presentation and get feedback on this. So it offers tips on how to improve your skills, like if you're using, just as I did, using too many filler words. If you're offering a summary, it offers a summary and tips on how to improve. So it really gives you some feedback. Just keep in mind that the presenter coach is not a person, so you might also want to present, if it's a big presentation, to a colleague and get their feedback too, because they may be able to say, oh, I'm not sure how you transitioned from here to here. It didn't really make sense to me. Also, it may have trouble, the presenter coach may have trouble understanding some accents or speech patterns. And I believe it's only available online. Actually, I think it's in the desktop now too, Leslie. I will double check that. Okay. So here's another new thing in PowerPoint, and we sent this out in the tips today, and this is also from Anna. She posted it on the Digital Collaboration Central site. So you can now, in Microsoft Forms Online, you can create your form and you can share it through a PowerPoint. So create your form online. When you go to collect responses, you can choose who you want to be able to respond. This is new. You can allow anyone to respond now, not just inside people, but anyone. So if you're presenting externally, you can do that as well. You can then go in PowerPoint to the Insert tab, choose Forms, and select which form you want to insert. It's going to take a little bit of time to start up, so be patient. This is another time where you could stop and like take a drink of water, take a breath, and it will insert the form into your PowerPoint. And here's an example of a form in PowerPoint. If you're interested, if you want to try it, you can scan the QR code. I think I wonder if I can just copy the link, put it here too. And you can say what your summer plans are. Well, I'm going to look at the questions real quick.
Someone had a really good tip about presenting in Zoom. When you share your screen, there's that little pop-up box at the bottom that will show you what your screen looks like.
Yes. Back in the day when I first started presenting online, I would have my presentation on an iPad at the same time to see what other people were seeing. But Zoom gives you a little window and shows you, so you don't have to panic. You can see what everybody else is seeing. Okay, let's see.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I actually was presenting in a department update, and this was on Teams, not on Zoom, but we needed to do some sort of poll. And we were trying to figure out, like, what's the difference between forms and polls within Teams? And when we tested it out, the one big roadblock we had with forms, I liked forms, is that some people, when they scanned it, they had to sign in and do a duo push. So that's why we ended up doing polls. But do you have any more explanation of like when to choose which feature?
So I think because Forms is updated, you shouldn't have to do that anymore. But Anna, if you're here, will you let us know?
I think that's exactly the difference. Is one is meant to be a meeting, quick answer, one question, polls, but it is exactly the same thing as Forms on the back end. So in both cases, you're very likely to be asked to authenticate yourself. And in a meeting, you might have already done so just to even get entrance into that meeting, depending on how that's set up.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that does make sense. And when we tested the forms thing, when the person said, "Oh, I had to get a dual push," that was like 2 months ago when we tested it. So we just kind of made the decision to do polls instead. Um, so Anna, you mentioned that you might need to do it for both of them. I was a little surprised at that, but maybe it's because people were scanning and doing it on their phones versus just answering a pop-up on their screen.
So now that Forms allows anonymous users outside of MD Anderson, you're likely to be able to present in a PowerPoint like you see here, but depending on how the actual meeting is set up, you may have extra limitations on who can enter the meeting. You know, you can't log in to the meeting with just a phone number. You know, somebody will need to identify you, things like that. But the polls could have been anybody in the meeting prior to us having Forms available to external users.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
So this is new because I think Anna, you posted maybe less than a week ago. So you might try it. For those of you who haven't used a QR code before, somebody gave a great tip. You can actually click on the QR code and make it bigger for people to scan. How to use a QR code is if you just open up your phone camera. You don't have to take a picture or anything, but it will detect the QR code. And then you can tap the little link below the code that shows up on your camera. So you can just use your phone camera to scan a QR code. So some great responses. There's a lot of heat responses. I have been aggressively trying to heat protect my windows this summer. It's ridiculous. So any tips on protecting your windows? What I mean is to try to keep the heat out. Great responses. Thank you. So this is what it looks like. Someone else said they have a hard time with polls in meetings because they always seem to freeze or crash. I haven't tested them enough to know. So maybe with this new system, it will work a little bit better. Okay. I also love all the other ideas. Okay. Okay. I can't advance my slide now. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So we mentioned this before during the AI session. There is Microsoft Designer for AI images. This is just sort of fun. You can sign into Microsoft Designer and create images. You can't use your MD Anderson login. You would use a personal login. You just put in a little prompt and it creates a really pretty image. They're just sort of fun. It could just be for your own personal fun, but you could create some neat images with this. They're supposed to be appropriate to use and copyright legit, I'll say. Like they're not stealing anyone else's images or anything to use this, so it's supposed to be appropriate to use. So some best practices. Best practices for design: limit the text. Try not to put, as I should have on this slide, but don't put too much text on a slide. Limit the number of slides if you can. Only use 2 to 3 colors. Don't try to use all the colors. Use 1 to 2 fonts. Sometimes people get crazy with the fonts. It needs to be a readable font. There are people with reading challenges, so you want to make sure you use a readable font. Limit the number of animations. Animations can be really jarring for people. If they have any sort of visual challenges at all, they can be jarring even if you don't. And turn slide transitions off. This is another accessibility issue. Slide transitions can also be jarring for people. It's very easy to turn them off. Avoid red and green text. Use black, white, or dark text on a contrasting background. A black background is never a good idea. It's kind of hard to read on a black background. Images should have a purpose, so don't just put them in there because they're cute. Or, I mean, sometimes you can, but they should have a purpose. You can right-click on any image and add an alt text. This increases accessibility for your users. Alt text is just a description. You've probably seen that when you're on social media now, sometimes just a little description of what the image is. And be careful when you're adding text to images. This can just cause eye strain to have text on top of an image. The best thing I can give you for presenting is just to practice, practice, practice. Have a friend watch you, give you feedback. Be open to the constructive criticism. Sometimes it's hard to hear for all of us, but it's good to be open. You can try that. Practice. You want to practice your presenter view to make sure before the Zoom or whatever it is that you know how it's going to display, and it's going to display the way it needs to. Use a headset for quality sound and test your sound ahead of time. A couple of other tools for presentations. Just remember that you have Brand Central, you have Visio if you need to create some diagrams. Creative Communications can create some content for you, not all of it, but something that's really specific you can't find, you could always reach out to them. We have BioRender from the library where you can create scientific figures. Snagit, you can create screenshots and add little call outs to things. There's of course Photoshop for those of you who are advanced. And then Slide Carnivals has some free templates. And ask the library if you have questions about copyright. So I'm a couple minutes over, but do we have any questions?
Is there a feature to convert from one language to another? I often have presentations to convert from English to Spanish.
Ooh,
I don't think we do.
I'm not sure, but I will check.
You can have the attendees translate the slides themselves during the presentation.
Oh,
in Teams.
In Teams.
Oh, in Teams.
Like to another, like auto transcription, or?
It looks to me a lot like closed caption.
Closed caption, okay.
But also the slides themselves will be translated. I would always suggest an expert in the other language double check, but there's many languages now that are part of that. It's part of the accessibility and
so translation. Is that when you have the presentation and it says present in Teams? Anna,
that's that. I like PowerPoint Live. If you're going to have a Teams meeting, when you go to share your screen, you can go down on the right and select PowerPoint Live. That allows you to have those live links. People can click them. They can go forward and back unless you limit that. But in a Teams meeting, you also have the option when you're sharing that way for people to actually translate the slides. I'll drop a resource in our connection with the three of us, and make sure that that's available to other people. But it's really helpful for our vision challenged people because they can also get some nice information, and it's on the same software backend that supports the translation features.
That's really good to know. So I'm gonna write down these questions. Someone else said, when you have a lot of images, compress the presentation. I think you're probably talking about sending it when you're sharing it. If you share it on OneDrive, you don't have to compress, but if you do have a big file that you're emailing, you may have to compress a big file. Did I miss any other big questions? We've got convert to another language.
We have the one question about the copy paste.
Oh, right, the copy paste. Copying things together. Okay, so we'll look at that. If you have any other tips, I'm going to post this on the team. Please share them either through the team or you can email me. Okay, someone else said, how do I create a poll for voting yes or no? You can use that in Microsoft Forms. There is a choice option in Microsoft Forms. And you don't have to embed the form in the slide. You could pull up the form while you're presenting online, but it's just easier to have it in the slide so you don't have to sort of toggle back and forth between screens if that causes you extra stress. All right. I hope this was helpful, but if there's gaps, things that we missed, let us know. Someone mentioned to me that in 2 weeks from now, there's a big institutional presentation going on at the same time as tool time. So I might cancel our next tool time just to take a break. I'm also going to be on vacation soon. But I will let you guys know, and we'll keep sending a tip of the week every other week. Do you enjoy the tips of the week?